I don't know if I have a whole lot to contribute to what's already been said. It's whether you take the route of challenging or tolerating really depends on the circumstance. For example, let's say I know a friend recently who later in his life adopted some Christian views, and it was comforting to him because his wife passed away, and he believed that he'd meet her again and that she was in heaven, and then believed that when he met a new woman that she had been sent by his former wife. And on one hand, I didn't want to challenge those because I could see it was comforting to him. On the other hand, I kind of sympathize with atheismo here because this was these views were built into an overall package which does say pretty deplorable things like, um, people will burn in hell lest they accept telepathically Christ. So on that note, I don't know where to draw the line, but I sympathize with atheismo when he said, you tolerate, certain tenets of Islam. The same overall package includes, as he said, whipping yourself with chains. And is there going to be a point in time when people view those scriptures and ask, why aren't we adhering to these tenets of the faith?
Yeah, I have to say that there are beliefs and systems that there are some beliefs that are obviously fallacious, that are they're designed to be beautiful and appealing. I mean, if you look at, for example, the Muslim heaven, it's great. Who could argue? I mean, if you look at, not I mean, everybody knows about the virgins you get, but if you actually read the hadiths about all the other stuff that they promise you and how wonderful it is, I mean, if anybody really thought it was real, there'd be nothing you wouldn't be able to do to get it. And then there are really pro-social beliefs that I don't disagree with at all. In all the world's religions, they have at least some good content. But even the more positive beliefs are part of a larger, more insidious system, because it's used to sort of pry open your brain and put in this entire package deal. And like you look at the dichotomy between heaven and hell, and how many Christians struggle with the guilt of knowing that they follow a God who's going to roast all these people. The promise of heaven is supposed to be a balm over that kind of a guilt. They're able to sign on to a horrible doctrine because within the same system they have these other promises of rewards or promises of good things. It's also intertwined that people who, whether they be religious people who are trying to candy coat their religion and or water it down and make it less aggressive, less violent, more tolerant. I think ultimately that can only ever be an ad hoc solution. The more offensive, violent, intolerant passages, they remain there. These people, even some of the relatively liberal ones, are proud and defiant of the fact that their scriptures have remained unchanged for so long. It really is only ever a temporary solution to have these moderate to liberal varieties of these religions. In the long term, they really need to go.
Concordance.
I want to make sure that we don't sort of misunderstand what accommodation really means. As an example, the National Center for Science Education, the NCSE, have a committee that basically is religion and culture in science education, and they have clergy members.
I'm really reluctant to interrupt you. I've got a message saying yet again that there's a problem with the audio. I don't have Blog TV open, so I can't see. Is someone watching Blog TV, and can we take a thumbs up and thumbs down on what's going on with the audio and whether it's good enough? Okay, carry on.
The goal here is, do we set a dividing line? Do we set it as a requirement that someone be essentially an atheist to participate in the debate between, say, creationism and science? And I think it's very important that we reach across the aisle and accommodate the beliefs of people who have like-minded goals. People like Ken Miller, who is both a passionate anti-creationist or I would say proponent of science, and groups like the NCSE, which keep taking flack from what you might call the new atheists, the slightly more confrontation P.Z. Myers and Richard Dawkins, who feel that they shouldn't allow Christian or theists or theologians to participate in this, that somehow they're diluting out the message. And I think it's exactly the opposite. I think we're much more effective if we don't turn this into a personal issue. DPR, you said essentially that you don't see any reason why you shouldn't ridicule someone's beliefs. And I think it's specifically because you shouldn't ridicule, that's not really the right way to say it. It's not you shouldn't ridicule anyone. You should give everyone the respect that you would expect them to give you if you held a view that they strongly disagreed with.
I'm not agreeing with that, no. My beliefs are based, so far as I can, on evidence and my best understanding of the world. I'm sorry, I refuse to accept that I should do anything other than ridicule those who believe that Noah's flood actually took place, and all the animals were put on a boat, survived for a year, and then sped out and they are. This all happened 4,000 years ago, and they sped out as we see them now. I'm sorry, that is just so banal. It is worthy of nothing but ridicule. Now, if they believe in a personal God, that's fine. I'm not going to interfere with that. But don't come telling me about a boat that was built by a 600-year-old man 4,000 years ago. I mean, I'm sorry. Ridicule is they are worthy of ridicule. And I apologise because I've changed my microphone and I hope my sound is better.
How far does it get you to ridicule someone's
Well, how do you reason? How do you reason with someone who has that belief?
Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't convince them by ridiculing their beliefs. You feel better. But really, how do you accomplish it? And that's why I'm saying the stealth approach of getting the ability to think first, getting that disseminated, getting that idea out there, that every idea requires support. Rather than attacking something that is fundamental to who and what they are, if we take the long way around, and focus more on why do you believe that? What support is there for that? Do you value evidence? How do you support?
But if they don't, then what are you left with? Because most of the people I've talked to on this issue, they don't seem to, and some of them have admitted it outright. So then you're at an impasse.
What would be your goal with someone that doesn't care if their beliefs are true, or doesn't care if evidence exists? Then you don't waste your time. You move on, because setting up some sort of
this goes back to what I was saying before. This goes back to what I was saying before. Sorry, Anne, very quickly. This goes back to what I was saying before. You can start. There are a multitude of approaches you can take, and you can start trying to use reason. And when reason has failed, what are you left with? Maybe ridicule will work.
The problem is that the person you're talking to is not an inconsequential passerby. The problem is that the people you're dealing with are your governor, the Board of Education, the judge you're trying to defend your lifestyle against, and so on. I mean, these are the people who have this perspective where, because we live in such a Christian dominant society, if you don't believe impossible nonsense for no good reason, then there's something wrong with you, because everybody else has a religion. And in the community that I live in, they don't care necessarily what religion it is, as long as you have one. They will accept you openly if you're Jewish or Hindu, and to a degree even if you're Muslim, but they won't accept you if you don't believe in anything at all. They would accept shaman and pagans before they accept me, because they want someone that shares some kind of delusion. And that's really what I think it is.
Anyway, as far as ridicule is concerned, there are some cases where I've argued with someone and I had absolutely no intention of engaging in any ridicule. I was making every effort to curb my natural level of sarcasm. And what happens is some of the beliefs that we examine are just so far out that the ridicule just writes itself, and or something I say could be said in complete earnest and be misconstrued as ridicule, because when I point out, I say, okay, well, here's this or this other one, and they'll assume that I'm ridiculing because this story is so self-evidently silly, even if I'm being completely serious. I mean, the problem is that many of these concepts in these religions are just inherently ridiculous. And you just talked about non-stamp collector's video several times, where he pointed out all of these absurdities, and the one that really had me is in hysterics. It says he's covering all these different impossible things he has to do. He says, oh, and as an afterthought, we need to find out some way to clean up the tons of piss and shit that all these thousands of animals are going to produce. the things are just so self-evidently silly. The ridicule, the satire, it just writes itself, even if you're not even trying.
Okay, I apologise. I removed you, Carter, simply for continuity, so we can keep the pace of the show going. We've got the next caller in already. Benedict, welcome to the show.
Hey guys.
Who's that? Who's that hairy man in your avatar that you're standing next to?
I don't know. Never seen him in my life.
How can we help you?
Well, I guess you've all seen the news. There's this shooting in Norway that was happening. I guess DPR, you and Aaron, will both be glad to hear that the Norway delegation we met in Dublin are all right. I've been in contact with them. What I really wanted to talk about was there's this post from PZ Myers on his blog called "A Glimpse into the Deranged Mind of a Mass Murderer." Are you familiar? Have you read it?
No.
Anyone? No? Okay. Basically, it's just this guy who did the shooting posted 1,500 pages of a manifesto of why he did it and what's wrong with the world. You know, it's a lot of crazy shit. I mean, he's talking about. Yeah. Anyway, what really got to me was he seems to be an atheist. I mean, he talks about not believing in
Christian.
God.
Yeah, all the reports I've seen is that, and yes, he is a Christian. I think one of the dangers of expressing views about him and what he did is that too little information is known about him at the moment. I know that some people have suggested, you always come out and criticise Muslims when they commit acts of atrocities, but where are you now when a Christian has done it, or potentially an atheist? I just think at the moment it's too early to say, and it seems to me much more a politically motivated act than it was a religious act.
I'm not even going to talk specifically about him. I just wanted to do a general thing, but
Okay.
just to say, I think he is actually an atheist because he's saying religion is a crutch for many weak people. I'm not going to pray for God and stuff.
Really, that's odd, because there are a lot of people who, when they say religion, they mean religious institutions as they exist. You know, I know Christians who would only describe as anything else but a follower of Christ, but they hate religion with air quotes around it. So I think that there's still. We need to wait for more of the details of the case to come out before we can say. But all, like I said, like TPR said, all the reports seem to indicate that he was a Christian. But we'll find out.
Okay, well, however that may be, what really got to me was once again he was quoting Richard Dawkins, saying how the selfish gene is about a book that tells us we should all be selfish and selfishness is in our genetic makeup. And what I simply don't understand is why do people talk about something they've clearly never read?
When I heard that the shooting had gone on, I mean, the first thing that I thought was so curious about this, and I brought it up to my son just to see if he remembered the statistics, and I thought he might. That okay, what is the country that's simultaneously statistically listed as both the most atheist country in the world and also the most peaceful in terms of having the lowest crime rate? You know, expecting him to remember that it was Norway, and hearing that you have what our first reports said was a fundamentalist Christian, and maybe whether fundamentalist applies or even Christian applies, that was the first report that we had of a Christian going out, and it was a Christian terrorist killing 92 people and blowing up a building. And I was thinking about the people that I met from Norway in Dublin who were telling me that, you know, I live in this crazy place. I live in Texas where they have all these religious wackos, and they're so fortunate they don't have those sorts of people there. And whereas we have had incidents like the Waco disaster, and we've had so many run-ins with religious nut jobs. I don't even want to go into the list just here in Texas that we've had in the last 10 years or so. That, you know, the Norwegians are thinking, well, because you live around all these dangerous sorts of people, and we're so much more sane. And well, apparently, this guy was Norse himself. He wasn't an immigrant. So I mean, the apart from the curiosity, the statistical curiosity of such a horrific event happening where the police often don't have guns, because why would they need them? You know, to then thinking about what the Norse must be feeling right now, has to be, with this number of people and this kind of crime in their country, it has to be equivalent to what I was feeling on 9/11. It just has to be. And while I laughed at the absurdity of the statistical absurdity of the initial story, at the same time, I feel a great deal of sorrow for Norwegians at this moment, and I felt a good deal of that, and still feel some of that for Japan as well. I think it's natural, it's innate that we care about other people. It's the only reason that our species has survived to the degree that it has. It's not that we're intelligent, it's that we're communal, and that we care about each other, and that we will sacrifice of ourselves, our happiness, our food, our efforts, etc., for someone else. That's the reason that we've become who we are.